Joining us in studio now is Evan Glass. He's a member of the Montgomery County Council. Evan Glass, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Kojo.
If you have questions or comments for Evan Glass, give us a call, 800-433-8850. Send us a tweet at Kojo Show, email to kojo@wamu.org, or you can go to our website, kojoshow.org, watch the live video stream of the conversation, see what this new Montgomery County Council member looks like, or you can ask a question or make a comment there. Evan Glass, first, congratulations on becoming a council member.
Thank you very much.
For people who might not be familiar with you and your background, this is something that Tom Sherwood usually checks on. What are you more interested in? What are you most interested in about Evan Glass's background?
He worked for Chicken Noodle News. CNN.
I thought it was Clinton News Network.
Well, depends on how your point of political view, which I don't have. But you were a journalist and now you're an elected official. What's the difference?
What's the difference? I like getting things done. That's what the difference is.
Are you more careful how you talk? One of the council members to me said it was one thing to be an activist, but when he got elected as a council member, he had to start weighing everything he said because we can twist it in any way we want to.
Well, I'm aware of how good you are at twisting people's words, if that's what you're telling me.
Well, I just shine light on them.
Well, sunshine is a good policy. But, I worked at CNN for 12 years. I covered Congress, national politics, presidential campaigns, and I absolutely loved it.
Do you wish you were up there right now?
Absolutely not. Because, this week, if I were still at CNN, I either would have been covering the Michael Cohen hearing, or I probably would have been at Vietnam with President Trump covering that. And while I was at CNN for 12 years, I had moved to downtown Silver Spring as the holes were still in the ground, and realized that I loved the walkable, livable, transit-oriented community. And years later, as I'm walking to the metro, the sidewalks were crumbling, and there was no crosswalk to get across the street. And I thought to myself, I know how Congress works, I know how the federal government works, but who do I talk to in my own neighborhood about fixing sidewalks? And that's what got me hooked on municipal government. And 15, 16 years later, here I am, an at-large member of the Montgomery County Council.
You got more votes than any of their four at-large people running.
In the November election?
You are on the Transportation and Environment Committee on the council. First, let's talk Metro, because County Executive Mark Elrich reiterated that he thinks the D.C.-backed plans to open the Metro at 5:30 a.m. instead of 5 a.m. would negatively affect Montgomery County bus riders. Apparently, the Metro board agreed. What do you think a long-term solution for Metro hours would look like?
So at first, I have to say I share the frustration that all the riders have, and the frustration for the hourly workers who work late at night. It's not an ideal situation for anybody, but the WMATA board, the Metro board, after getting an infusion of nearly $500 million to shore up the infrastructure, which was critically important because it had been denied the money to improve our infrastructure for years. But at that point in time, we were told that these systems would be fixed within 2 years. And we're now at that 2-year juncture, and something's still not right. And so what the Metro Board and the organization as a whole needs to start doing is communicating better. We need to really understand what this timeline is. And I'm not quite sure why we can't chew gum and walk at the same time, fix our infrastructure system, improve our operations, and bring this system back to the world-class operational system that it once was.
Mike Goldman, the Montgomery County representative on the board, said that, if we went forward with longer hours, it could endanger federal funds, could affect the Purple Line, all kinds of, and you told the Bethesda Beat magazine that we need to find a way to increase service and have a safe metro system. It seems to me a lot of people keep defining the problem. We seem to know what the problem is, but why don't we? Does it require just spending more money to have more maintenance workers working at night in these off hours so that you can extend those service hours? Because I just know so many people now with Uber and Lyft, they don't need Metro. They can spend $5 or $6, get to where they want to go, rather than spending a few dollars on Metro and having to descend into underground and wait and wait and wait.
There certainly is a demographic that does not need Metro for late night enjoyment or getting back from work or whatever it is they need to get home to.
But many people do.
But many people do. That's the bottom line. And being an elected official in Montgomery County, I need to make sure that our residents are being able to commute on the system in a safe and efficient manner. When I moved to Montgomery County, to downtown Silver Spring, I took the red line from Silver Spring to Union Station, where CNN operated, and I did so every day without thinking about life, limb, or disruptions, and we need to get back to that time.
Well, now you ride the bus, because I wanted to stay with Metro for a while.
That was my trick question on that. I have a trick. You go ahead and ask.
Go ask your trick question.
Well, when you got elected, you said you would ride the bus, and you put out a video on the day that you rode the bus. But you're an at-large council member in Montgomery County. It's not a few city blocks. It's a huge county. How often do you just ride the bus to work and then get in the car and drive around the county? How much of that is image, and how much do you really ride the bus?
Because it took you 80 minutes to get to work the first time when you rode the bus. And
that's because he's taking all those
took
videos.
You 80 minutes to get back home, and that's 2 hours and 40 minutes per day riding the bus. Is that something that is that sustainable? For you?
So my background, having lived in downtown Silver Spring, my husband and I had one car for the two of us. And for 10 years, we had one car. When we moved into a single-family house, I told our realtor that I wanted to make sure we didn't have to get a second car. And I was the one who took Metro, took the bus, and walked whenever possible. I had to get a second car when I announced my candidacy for a county council at-large seat. It's a 500-square-mile jurisdiction. As you well know, it's vast. And so while I do have to drive to fulfill my obligations as a county council member.
Okay, what kind of car is it?
I drive the Honda Fit, which I've had for about 10, 12 years now. But I do take public transit as often as possible. That was my pledge when I first got sworn in, and I'm holding myself to it.
This week, a Purple Line. You had a follow-up to that?
Go ahead. There's one more transportation question to be good. I have another issue.
This week, a Purple Line tunnel under Flower Avenue was partially completed ahead of schedule. The project has been controversial because of noise complaints and late night and early morning construction. What do you think of how the Purple Line has been progressing so far, and how do you balance the desire to build it in a timely manner with respect for people's rest, their sleep, their sanity?
Yeah, that's a real problem. And it appears that the State Department of Transportation and the Purple Line Partners has been a little deaf to the noise complaints that have been real legitimate, especially in the areas not far from me, where the tunnel has recently at least been breached, both sides of it. The other aspect is the timeliness and the cost overruns that are already mounting. I want to engage more with the state and figure out why we're having this problem. As a former journalist, I believe that oversight and accountability are extremely important in government functions. And I'm troubled by what I'm learning in these short 3 months that I've already been on the council as it relates to the progress of that project.
Let me ask you about legislation. So it's being called just cause legislation. It would dramatically change rental agreements in the state. The Montgomery County delegation, I think the council supports it. Right now, landlords can give renters, and there are zillions of renters in the state, 60-day notice with no reason, just that the contract's up, the term's up, and you have to get out. That this just cause would say the landlord has to give a reason, a just cause reason, in order to kick someone out. That housing is such a crisis, you can't just have the landlords arbitrarily wanting to kick people out. Is that the right idea about the legislation, and what are your views on it?
So the just cause eviction legislation has been sponsored by my friend and my personal delegate, Janelle Wilkins, and I have been supportive of that effort. What that effort does, it's limited to Montgomery County, and it basically says that if you are a good tenant, in good standing, and you pay your rent, and you are not a nuisance to the community, you should be able to stay in that home.
Why can't Montgomery County just pass it? Why does it have to be a
There's
legislative?
a quirk in state law that requires the state to change those types of rental agreements. But
Housing crisis is a big deal. So
it is. Well, and Kojo was in Silver Spring talking about housing and how it relates to school. And this is another way that there is disruption sometimes among the students. And when a student has concerns about where they're going to be living or being uprooted, that has other effects, ripple effects in the school system. So I think just cause eviction is one way to create more stability within our residential population.
Here is Marie in Durwood, Maryland. Marie, you're on the air. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I want to know what this Montgomery County Council member's opinion is about the fact that today Montgomery County, below the agricultural preserve line, has been deliberately and willfully overpopulated and overdeveloped, becoming a deadly county, dangerous, filled with violence, ruining our quality of life, especially for longtime native-born Montgomery County residents. Yet if you live 1 inch north of the agricultural preserve, those citizens are treated like kings and queens, giving enormous property tax breaks with no threat to their quality of life. Yet we, long-term residents, are watching our county just literally go down the sewer in terms of everything that made Montgomery County once the most beautiful county in the country.
So, Councilmember Glass, you know what Marie really thinks.
Well, I appreciate you calling in, Marie, but I'm going to have to disagree with you, quite frankly, on a host of the things that you said. Montgomery County is a beautiful place to live. We are richly diverse. We love our neighbors regardless of where they were born, who they love, what language they speak. And that is why I chose to move to Montgomery County more than 20 years ago. And we do have a population of about 1.1 million people, and most of those do live below the agricultural reserve. But the agricultural reserve has been recognized as a national treasure. And we in Montgomery County are in the forefront of preserving 1/3 of our space, which is the agricultural reserve, so that we can have farm-to-table living. We can encourage farmers to live out there and protect our natural waterways and environment.
Well, let's not talk about corruption. The chief operating officer of the county's economic development department is pled guilty for embezzling $7 million. I read somewhere that you said that there are aspects of the county government that are, quote, screaming for better oversight. How bad is the problem of corruption in Montgomery County, or potential corruption?
Well, within a week or two of being sworn into the Montgomery County Council, one of the things from being a journalist to being an elected official is I had all this information easily supplied to me, and some of that information was the Inspector General's report and conversations directly had with those investigators. And what Peter Bang was able to do during his tenure, steal nearly $7 million from the Economic Development Department, there were a lot of systemic holes that we need to plug. And by shining light, by having full-throated open conversations, some of that has been bureaucratically corrected. But I'm committed to making sure that we continue shining that light, have more oversight.
More aggressive oversight.
More aggressive oversight. You can go to my YouTube page, you can see my 8 minutes of questioning with the IG. And when I asked where else they have looked, they basically said, we haven't really looked anywhere else. So I can't answer your question. I don't believe that there is a problem in Montgomery County. I like to think that we have wonderful staff, we have great employees, but we can always do a better job.
Speaking of bureaucratically corrected, you'll be introducing a bill soon that would address pay equity between male and female county employees. Recently reporting from the Bethesda Beat magazine showed that there are significant gaps between the annual salaries of male and female employees, significant gaps in their overtime pay. Why do you think these gaps persist, and what would your bill do to combat them?
Well, thank you for asking. So next Tuesday, I'll be introducing the Montgomery County Pay Equity Act. And what that is going to do is forbid the county operation from requesting salary history as part of the hiring process. Because what we know is that when you rely on an applicant's history, you only perpetuate the pay inequity that exists. In the state of Maryland, a woman makes 79 cents approximately for every dollar a man makes. And that is even worse for women of color. Black women make 69 cents per dollar, and Latinas make 47 cents per dollar. And then that doesn't even include women who have left the workforce to raise their family. So when they're applying for jobs, current policy allows managers to use that salary history, and
Perpetuates itself.
Absolutely. And so what I have found in hiring my own team, my own office, particularly my chief of staff, who is a Latina, that they were asking for salary history. And I said, this isn't right. And you're asking me of it, right? And my team. And so we're going to ban that and try to correct this. And on Tuesday at the press conference, when I announce this, I'm going to be sharing some pretty alarming data that shows that this is a real, pervasive, and systemic problem in the county.
Evan Glass is a member of the Montgomery County Council. And, you know, you, like Tom Sherwood, used to have a real job before you got into politics. You used to be in the news media. Tom Sherwood used to report for NBC4. He retired from that job last year. But wait, what's this coming into the room right now?
Goodness.
Somebody's bringing a cake.
Is this cake union made?
This cake is probably union made, but this cake is because this is the
good.
10-year anniversary of Tom Sherwood's service here on the Politics Hour, the service for which he left a real job to continue to perform this service. And so we would just like to say thank you very much for the past 10 years. Hopefully we will get many more years with you on the Politics Hour. And this cake, which you will have to consume the entire cake before this broadcast ends,
I'll share it with the newsroom.
is our way of saying to you, thank you very much.
Well, you know, as a political analyst, I get to give my opinion more. As a reporter, you know, I always had to find somebody else to say what I wanted to say. But this is thank you very much for the cake. It looks very good.
And because you got to give your opinion
know you
more,
had
you
nothing to do
you
with it.
have about 30 seconds to talk about Bryce Harper leaving the Nationals and heading to the battery-throwing Philly fans, Philadelphia Phillies.
60% of the fans of the Nats come from Virginia. It is a huge economic development sports industry in the city. The Nats this year, when they're going to have a big gambling casino at the.
So you're saying they're going to lose money now that Bryce Harper's gone?
Bryce Harper put butts in the seats. Now we'll all be there on April the 2nd when he returns in that Phillies uniform, and we'll all be booing. I'll be more hoarse than normal.
We have an announcement about Monday's show. Virginia Attorney General Mark Herring will be in studio in his first sit-down interview since the scandals broke involving the top 3 officials in the Commonwealth. So you'll want to tune in for that. Also, you'll
I
be
don't
getting...
think I'm not busy Monday.
There's that couch that you have at your house. Also, you'll be getting a preview of our next roadshow coming up on March 19th on gentrification in the district's art scene. We'll look at how small independent theaters can survive in a rapidly changing Washington environment. That all starts Monday at noon. Evan Glass, once again, congratulations and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Kojo. Thank you, Tom.
See
Congratulations.
you Monday
Thank
at
you.
noon. Until then, thank you for listening. I'm Kojo Nnamdi.
The Kojo Nnamdi Show is produced by Ruth Tam, Mark Gunnery, Julie Deppenbrock, and Margaret Barthel. Our managing producer is Angelisa Schrobstorff, and our senior producer is Mana Kashfi. Our intern is Sydney Grannon, and our engineer is Josephine Neonai. For past shows and more content, visit kojoshow.org.